What is up, you guys? This is JP, and today I'm going to be talking about paralysis by analysis in fitness. So, for a lot of you fitness nerds out there, this video is gonna be mainly pertaining to you. And I don't say that in a bad way because I definitely categorize myself as a fitness nerd. And I don't mean that in a condescending way to people who aren't as like in the numbers or in the trenches with finding out the more advanced exercise science topics. I know some people like to throw around the term nerd as a very almost like a humble brag sort of way. That's definitely not how I mean it here, but this is for people who tend to kind of overdo themselves in the fitness numbers, and they sit there and kind of start to muddy the waters, and they almost confuse themselves by looking at, I don't want to say looking at the data too much, but looking at the nitty-gritty details and becoming obsessed with that. And there's a lot to those little nitty-gritty details. So I'll kind of preface this video by saying that I do believe it's good for every individual to focus on minutia to some extent. It's not bad to focus on minutia, and I actually seen a comment about this. I think it was in the MASS members group. I mentioned it before, but MASS is just a research review that I follow, and in this research review they have a Facebook group for people to communicate about the research review. It was either that or the Stronger by Science group. Either way, it was a group with a lot of people, and someone started talking about Renaissance periodization, and I forgot what the conversation exactly was, but it was talking about minutia, and someone made a comment about basically it was one of those minimalist comments that I actually did a video about, and I still see them to this day, and that's why I think the video was a good video, about, oh, you shouldn't focus on the very complicated details, just focus on the basics. And he came off very condescending, and someone replied to that person by saying, you know, well, this is a group for people who like focusing on minutia. These are for the people who like focusing on the very in-depth, in-the-weeds topics of exercise science. So I definitely don't think that it's a bad thing to do, and I think that it's gonna get us further in the fitness industry. There are a lot of things that, you know, the nerds want to weed out, and we want to learn, and we want to be able to, you know, kind of wrap up in neat practical applications, little bubbles in you know, presents to be able to disseminate to the public so that this can get out to everybody, and then everyone else can make better gains, because that's essentially what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to make better gains. But at the end of the day, you don't want to get so caught up in the little details and so caught up in all these kind of very in-depth concepts, and then kind of get this paralysis by analysis that I have kind of suffered before, and that I still see people doing to this day. I even have clients that are like this. I had a recent thing with a few people where they just get so caught up in what to do. Okay, so it's like, should I do this? Should I do that with training? What do I do here? Do I focus on this macro, that macro? And they almost become like, they're physically not showing it, but their mental state almost seems like they can't breathe, because there's just so much between Instagram and YouTube and prior people that they've worked with. And I used to be in that same boat where there's just so much information to choose from. You just get so overwhelmed, you like don't execute. And that's one thing that I learned, is that, and I've heard someone say this about business, it doesn't matter how much planning you do, at some point you have to execute. And let me give you guys a very good example for what I mean by this in regards to, and how you guys can take away from this. Currently, I'm in a cut, and I've been in a cut for a few months. I started my calorie cut probably about 2 to 3 months ago, and I started at 200 pounds. 2 days ago, actually I think it was yesterday, I weighed in the morning at 179, which means I'm 21 pounds down. So it's kind of funny though, because about 2 weeks ago, I had a whole week and a half, 2 weeks where I went strict. I didn't eat anything bad. I know for an absolute fact I was in a caloric deficit, and I had very frequent but subtle bouts of hunger where I was hungry. I'd be going through the day, I'd be a little hangry, it'd be kind of hard, you know, sometimes. I'm not starving myself, but it'd be very hard. But then I would go a week and a half, and then I would wake up and I weighed myself and nothing. I actually didn't lose any weight. I think I might have lost like 0.1 pounds, but it was so insignificant that I basically didn't lose any weight. And I had weeks, I'll have weeks sometimes too where I don't lose anything. I actually might go up 0.2 pounds from the previous week, even though I'm not strict. I'll have one meal, a couple pieces of fruit, 2 protein shakes, and that's it. This last week, I was kind of feeling beat up from my cut and pushing the workouts pretty hard. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna take 4 or 5 days off for a deload, kind of like a pseudo easy deload week where I don't do anything. I didn't do any workouts for 5 days, and I kind of ate whatever I want. I'm not joking. Every single day I had cookies, I had food, I had junk food, I had fast food. I know I was in a caloric surplus. I mean, when you eat half a box of cookies, which are 1,500 calories for just the cookies, and I had 2 other meals in a day, I know I was above 3,000 calories, probably closer to 4,000. The point being is that at the end of the 5 days, I actually went down from 182.6 to 179 in those 5 days of not eating. Now, it makes me scratch my head because I'm thinking like, how am I gonna be in a hard caloric deficit, not lose any weight, but then I go 5 days of doing pretty much nothing and I eat a bunch of food and somehow I lose 3 pounds. Now, some of you may say that's water. I don't think it could be water because I was eating more food and drinking more liquids. You know, I would go on a lie detector test and I know I'd pass and say that I know it's not water. I really don't think it was water. I wasn't tracking every little thing I was doing, but again, I would bet every dollar I have with my experience that I was in a caloric surplus. The point being is that I can't sit there and try and quantify all the stuff that's happening in my body. There's too much going on, there's too much happening, and I still ended up losing the weight. So more weight than I did when I felt like I was being more strict. So the point being is that sometimes if you overwhelm yourself with trying to figure out what's going on and you get that paralysis by analysis, you could be doing more damage, you know, to yourself than you want to. And then again, like I've mentioned before on this channel, the placebo effect has been proven in fitness. So if you're sitting there getting so overwhelmed and anxious because you can't figure something out, you might again be essentially mentally and figuratively shooting yourself in the foot, when in reality, if you just stop thinking about it and you just execute, you'll actually be doing yourself a bigger favor. If you guys have any questions, comments, please leave them down below. I know this video was a little vague, but it's just something that I know would have helped me if I would have been told that. But again, any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.